I have added a ton of great music to my vinyl collection over the past year across all genres, music new and old. I'm going to highlight 20 of the coolest albums added to my collection this year. This episode, talking about records. My name is G.I. Sanders from NTX Vinyl, a small chain of independent record shops in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you're not local, but you are in the U.S., you can shop online with us anytime at ntxvinyl.com, and would love it if you'd subscribe to our channel here on YouTube and follow us across social media on Facebook and Instagram. Let's take a look back at 2023. This was actually pretty easy for me to do because I'm semi-diligent about logging my collection on Discogs, which gives me the ability to kind of scroll back. You can sort your collection by date added, see everything you've added to your collection in the past year, or any amount of time you like. So I went through my Discogs collection, picked out what I think are 20 of the coolest albums I've added to this wall and to this room over the past year, and we're going to start going through them right now. The first album I thought of when I started putting together this list is right here. This is Green Street by Grant Green, one of my absolute favorite jazz guitarists. This is a reissue, Blue Note reissue. Originally came out in 1961. This is, I believe, a 2015 reissue, which is a pretty sought after album. Blue Note reissues are fantastic. This one's even more unique because it is a test pressing, pressed at RTI. Unbelievable. When I found this, the album was actually separated from the cover, and so I didn't realize what it was, but I unpacked it, and the further I got in, I realized what I owned was a test pressing. It's my favorite Grant Green record. First of all, it's absolutely iconic, and what's incredible, this is dated June 27, 2014, is that this test pressing is not even on Discogs. So this is the one that wasn't in my Discogs collection, but it was the first one I thought of just because it was so unique and so, I guess you could say, rare. I don't know how many of these test pressings of the 2015 Blue Note reissue exist, but I can tell you it sounds absolutely fabulous. And if you're not familiar with Green Street by Grant Green, it is an absolute essential jazz classic, and I would highly recommend you check it out. So it's the first one, again, the first one I thought of just because it's so unique. You don't run across test pressings very often, even when you buy big collections like I do. But finding one of my favorite jazz albums was a true pleasure, and I still enjoy this one quite frequently. Next one up is another audiophile type of record, and that is Deja Vu, a 1983 mobile fidelity pressing. Absolutely fantastic record. I love CSN's debut, but when they added Neil Young and they conquered Deja Vu, I think this was when they were at the kind of peak of their songwriting. You've got songs like Our House, which was obviously a big one from Graham Nash. You've got Carry On, Teach Your Children, Almost Cut My Hair, of course, Helpless, and then the fantastic cover of Joni Mitchell's Woodstock. It's a beautiful album. Deja Vu is one of those, I think, essential classic rock records, and I had never come across this mobile fidelity pressing, which sounds absolutely fantastic. So was happy to add this one to the collection last year. Another classic jazz album added to my collection in the past year. This is Birth of the Cool by Miles Davis. This is a 1975 Japanese pressing. Absolutely love this record. It was one of my kind of introductory points for Miles Davis and for honestly the whole genre, probably going back maybe 6-7 years ago when I really started to deep dive into jazz. So I always have a great appreciation for this particular album because of that. And I think it is a pretty good entry point for anyone who doesn't know jazz. I think Birth of the Cool is pretty cool. I would say this one, along with Jack Johnson and obviously like Kinda Blue, if you're going to get into Miles Davis, are pretty good entry points. Love this one. Japanese pressings sound fantastic. This one is no different. I added a bunch of them to my collection this year. You'll see a number of them throughout this video, but Birth of the Cool definitely stands out as one of the coolest records added to my collection in the past year. The next album on the list is one of those that has just been a gaping hole because I've been waiting for a reissue. I always preach that you should be patient, especially when it's top tier artists, big names like a Tom Petty. Eventually they're all going to get reissued and repressed if they haven't already. This is Mojo. Originally came out in 2010. This is the 2023 reissue on red vinyl. A fantastic Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers record. This was the last one that I did not have to complete the entire Tom Petty discography. So I've always just kind of been waiting. The original 2010 pressing has been hard to come by. In 2010, not a lot of records were being made. I was buying throughout that time period, but I just didn't pick up Mojo for whatever reason. So I've been waiting it out, waited 13 years to complete my Tom Petty discography, and I did so this year with Mojo. Super excited that they finally reissued them. This one, and it is a great sounding record, which is always a bonus. Another reissue that just recently came out, not an album that I didn't own. I own an original, and there are certainly reissues available, but never before has there been a 45 RPM cut of Pearl Jam's epic album Yield from 1998. This is the Vinyl Me Please 45 RPM edition. It comes on a beautiful red, translucent red and black vinyl, and it sounds absolutely incredible. Pressed on 180 gram black and red high melt vinyl, lacquers cut at 45 RPM by Levi Seitz, Black Belt Mastering. Again, as a Vinyl Me Please exclusive. If you love this album, songs like In Hiding and Given to Fly and Faithful and Do the Evolution, some absolutely essential Pearl Jam songs on this record. It's a great album through and through, and this is, I believe, the definitive version to have. So if you're into Yield, seek this one out. It is a great pressing, and you can still pick it up semi-reasonably. Awesome record, and one of those cornerstone pieces in the Pearl Jam catalog. Another jazz album, another classic jazz album, and another Japanese pressing. This is a 1976 Japanese pressing of Duke Ellington and John Coltrane's collaboration. I think I'd heard this record before, maybe had a beat-up copy many years back, but man, to hear it in its full glory, really beautiful pressing. This is one of those where, again, I think along with kind of Blue would be one of the kind of door openers for jazz. If any newbies out there who aren't listening to jazz yet, this is a beautifully smooth recording by two of the greatest in the genre. Have plenty of Coltrane in my collection. Have a couple Duke Ellington records. Did not have this one, like I mentioned, a really clean copy, so was very happy to add this to the collection. If you don't know this album, definitely check it out. This is one of those where it stands out. Even Norah Jones cites this as her favorite jazz album of all time, which is saying something. So check out the Coltrane Duke Ellington collaboration. Fabulous record. For something completely different, how about an original pressing of the Reverend Horton Heat's Liquor in the Front, Poker in the Rear. This is from, look up the year on this, 93, I want to say, 94. Reverend Horton Heat, based out of Dallas, Texas. This is their Sub Pop debut, I believe. Fantastic record if you're into like kind of psychobilly, surfer rock. I saw them on this tour opening for Soundgarden on the Super Unknown tour. It was fantastic. Just a really cool album, and was an absolute joy to find an original pressing of this one in one of the collections I acquired. Just finding these early 90s records, there's something about the nostalgia of finding that original. I've got a nice reissue of this one already, which came out in the last couple years. But again, finding that 94 pressing is always super exciting. So I was really happy to add this one to the collection. So I'm a big fan of the Dallas music scene, and so this is one of those kind of pinnacle albums from that era. This next one is an album I can probably say I would have never heard unless the LP did not end up in my hands, and that is The Ghost of Tom Jod by Bruce Springsteen. It came out in 1995. I know the title track mostly because Rage Against the Machine covered it, and I've seen them do that live, and I think I have a 45 single of that. But I'd never heard heard the original track. The title track is the only thing I'd heard off this album. But when I found the LP, took a listen to the whole thing, and I gotta say, it's definitely one of my favorite Springsteen records. It reminds me a lot of the raw nature of Nebraska, which is my favorite Springsteen record. So goes to Tom Jod, and I think goes along with that really, really well. Great songwriting, stripped down. I think that's when Bruce Springsteen really shines, at least to my ear. So goes to Tom Jod. This is a hard one to come by, and I don't think they've reissued it very much, if at all, which is a shame because it's a great Springsteen record. 1995 copy of Ghost of Tom Jod. Another 90s original, this one from 1992, and that would be Meantime by Helmet, their second LP. I think I've featured this in some other videos, probably in like underrated 90s rock albums, because I think this would definitely stand up there. I remember when this came out, I was not familiar with Helmet at all. I remember buying the CD just based off the titles, the lead single, which was Unsung. Such a great song. I mean, the album from the title track all the way through is a really great kind of hardcore punk influenced alternative record. Again, just so much great music coming out of the rock scene from the early to mid 90s. And I think Helmet is often overlooked, but not by me. When I found this one, original pressing, I was super excited. Awesome album to add to the collection. Will always cherish it. I did not add a lot of box sets to my collection in the past year, but I did add one at least, maybe a couple others I'm not seeing at the moment, but this one I know for sure. This is Kicking Television, live in Chicago from the greatness of Wilco, recorded May 4th through 7th, 2005 at the Vic in Chicago, Illinois. Just a fantastic 4 LP box set. This has been on my list to complete my Wilco collection. I was talking about that earlier with the Tom Petty record. This is similar. I've owned everything Wilco has put out officially. This is the only one that I had never got my hands on, but I added it to the collection this year. It's a beautiful live set from, I think, really some peak live Wilco. I mean, they're a great band still to this day, but if you go back to the early days of Wilco, but this 2005 version of the band, where they're just great stuff. Theologians and Poor Places, I'm Trying to Break Your Heart, Shot in the Arm, I'm the Man Who Loves You, Hummingbird, Out of Sight, Out of Mind, Camera. I mean, it's a greatest hit set for sure, and it's a beautiful, beautiful package, recorded at a beautiful theater in Chicago. So Kicking Television, this was a hard one to come by, and definitely one of those I was excited to add to the wall in the last year. This next one is an album that has heavy roots in Dallas and is one of the reasons why I picked up a guitar when I was a teenager, and that is Bill by Tripping Daisy. This is finally, for the first time on vinyl, from Good Records, based here in Dallas. Fantastic record from Tim DeLauder and company. Tim went on to found Polyphonic Spree with Mark Pirro, and also Brian Wakeland from Tripping Daisy in the early days. This is one of those kind of psychedelic pop rock albums. I always equate Tripping Daisy to kind of a cross between like Flaming Lips and Jane's Addiction. This came out originally, I believe, in '92. It's a bunch of different versions. This is a nice blue version. 45 RPM cut. Beautiful packaging, tons of extras from Good Records. If you don't know Tripping Daisy, check them out. Bill is their debut record and is them at kind of their most raw. They got a little more experimental on their later records, and that was a perfect segue into the Polyphonic Spree. But Bill is where it started. Key tracks like Lost and Found and My Umbrella and Blown Away. Just a beautiful album that I can't recommend enough, and a band that definitely does not get enough credit outside of the Dallas area. This next one has been on my list for years, and I finally got a copy, and that is the self-titled record by Monsters of Folk, which is a indie rock folk group, if you will, featuring Jim James from My Morning Jacket, Connor Oberst from Bright Eyes, as well as M. Ward and Will Johnson from Symptomatic. Just a fantastic record. If you like any of those bands, or any of those genres I kind of just touched on, indie rock, folk rock, certainly some experimental elements. I'm a huge My Morning Jacket fan. Anything Jim James touches, I'm in for. And same could be said for Will Johnson. Same could be said for Bright Eyes. I love all of these bands. So this is a hard one to come by. It is definitely in need of a reissue. And there's rumors that it is going to get reissued. I believe Jim James mentioned online somewhere that they're working on that. This is a 2009 pressing. I don't think it's been reissued since then, since it originally came out. So if you haven't heard Monsters of Folk, you can definitely check it out. I don't know if it's streaming, but probably on YouTube. And then hopefully there will be a vinyl reissue soon. This is a beautiful album. Definitely needs to be repressed. There are some artists that I collect every release from on vinyl. And a lot of them, I've got all of the major releases, and all that's left are kind of like unique oddities, singles, things like that. And Nine Inch Nails is definitely one of those. I have the whole catalog, but finding all of their 12-inch singles can be a bit of a chore. That is the case for Closer to God and Further Away. This is a really cool kind of set of singles featuring looks like 8-9 different versions of Closer, and then you've got a couple different versions of A Heresy and March of the Pigs on here. So really cool European 12-inch singles. They didn't release these in the United States, I believe. Came out in '94 around the time of Downward Spiral. Just really cool versions that you can't hear anywhere else unless you have the CD single set. I don't think even stuff like this is on streaming services, maybe on YouTube, but certainly not on Spotify and Apple Music, I don't believe. So I was happy to come across these. Not ones that I listen to a ton per se, because it's like the same song over and over, different versions. But from a collectability aspect, when it comes to some of my favorite bands like Nine Inch Nails, I'll definitely pick up stuff like this. Just I love the artwork, I love the nostalgia of it, and honestly, I think Closer is a killer track. So this was one I didn't expect to find in the past year, but was really happy that I did. You might not expect that I'd have a country album on this list, but I do. This is Heroes by Willie Nelson. This is a beautiful album. Came out in 2012. I don't believe has ever been reissued. Is definitely a hard one to come by. I see a ton of Willie Nelson records. I mean, the guy's got 100 different studio albums. That doesn't even count greatest hits and compilations. And we're in Texas, so I see them all the time, but I rarely see this album. It features everyone from his son, Lucas Nelson, to Snoop Dogg, to Merle Haggard, Sheryl Crow, Jamie Johnson. You've got him doing covers of Pearl Jam and Coldplay. You just got a really, really great mix of performances, of song choice, and it's just a beautiful album by Willie. I think he really shines on this album. I think, again, the musicianship is excellent, and it's just a really, really cool piece for the Willie collection, which I've got. I don't have near as many Willie Nelson records as a lot of people, but I do have probably 10 or 15 that I really love, and this one definitely made the cut this year. The older I get, the more appreciation I have for the greatness of Iggy Pop and his Stooges era music, and all the way up to his solo stuff. This is a really cool 1996 best of called Nude and Rude. This is an album I'd never seen before, and it's got stuff from the early days. I Want to Be Your Dog, No Fun, Search and Destroy, Gimme Danger, up through China Girl, Lust for Life. It's just a really cool set. I believe released in the UK only. I've got all of the main Stooges releases, and I'm starting to kind of get into more of Iggy's solo career as well. So this was a really cool one to run across, a best of I had never seen. I thought the artwork was really cool on this one. Grab this one if you ever see it out in the wild. I don't know how many reissues have been made of this one, if any, but this 96 double LP sounds fantastic, and was super excited to add it to the collection this year. I actually mentioned this one earlier, not even realizing I had the album on my list, but it deserves to be here, and that is the self-titled record from CSN. And the reason why this is exciting is because, as you can see, it is a Classic Records 200 gram pressing. Absolutely beautiful sounding record. Great debut record, one of, I think, the best of all time, from one of the first ever supergroups, if you will. This album again, and then going into Deja Vu, that period of the band, they were on top of their game. Played their, I think, second gig ever at Woodstock as a trio, along with Neil Young, who was off camera. But this is just one of those classic albums where when you find kind of the definitive pressing of it, whether it be like a Mobile Fidelity or a UHQR, or in this case, a 200 gram audiophile pressing, definitely worth adding to the collection. This is one I will hold on to forever. Another audiophile album that had been on the list forever, didn't really ever think I'd actually get a copy, but that is The Greatness of Surfer Rosa by the Pixies. The amount of influence this band, and in particular this album, had on the entire alternative music scene of the late 80s, early 90s can't really be understated. This album, I think, is an absolute classic. Where's My Mind was a big hit, but Bone Machine, Broken Face, Gigantic, Tony's Theme, oh my golly, it's just a Cactus, great album. This is Mobile Fidelity, and it is a absolutely beautifully pressed album. If you can find a copy of Surfer Rosa that stands the test of time like this one, I would encourage you to grab it. It sounds absolutely fantastic, and again, I think it's just such an important record when it comes to underground indie alternative music. It's one of the beginning points for a lot of bands, and I really appreciate it because of that. Another one of those early 90 12-inch singles from a band that I collect everything from, that is Nirvana, and this is Sliver with the B-side Dive. I was super excited to find this. I've had the 7-inch single version since it came out, probably in 91, 92. I remember getting that. So to get the 12-inch was really, really cool. This features, obviously, Kurt and Chris, but this is Chad Channing on drums on Dive, and then Dan Peters on drums on Sliver. So it's a really cool kind of snapshot in time. I love the artwork on this, always have. And again, since I've had that 7-inch single for so long, I love the fact that I could add the 12-inch to the collection as well. So definitely one of those pieces that stood out to me when I went back and looked over all the stuff I've added over the past year. So love Nirvana, and I love this single. Released in 1998, and I don't believe it's ever been repressed, unfortunately. This is The Greatness of Mermaid Avenue. I had Wilco on the list already. This is Billy Bragg and Wilco making some sense out of some Woody Guthrie lyrics, which is just incredible to take some iconic lyrics and poetry and put them to music. This is one that had, again, never thought I'd see, never had seen until this moment. But if you know Wilco and you know California Stars and Hoodoo Voodoo, there's a bunch of songs that are still in their set list today. But this is just Ingrid Bergman's really cool. I Guess I Planted. Another Man's Done Gone. Such great songs. Again, released in 98 as a collaboration between Wilco and Billy Bragg, covering Woody Guthrie poetry and putting it to music. A true gem. They also did a volume 2 of this that I'm still on the hunt for. But if you can find a copy of Mermaid Avenue, it's definitely one to hang on to, because you don't see it very often. And hopefully there will be a reissue of this someday. Last but not least, an album I've waited 20 years to own on vinyl. Again, didn't know if I'd ever see it because it's very niche, and that is The Greatness of Year of the Rabbit from Ken Andrews. You may know Ken Andrews from his main project Failure, which was a very kind of underground yet iconic band from the early 90s. Year of the Rabbit is a one-off album band project that he wrote and recorded and put out in 2003. It is a great rock record, very heavy-hitting, straightforward, punchy, and it had never been pressed to vinyl until 2023. So I was super stoked that this came out. Man, it's just, again, a really cool artwork and great instrumentation, great songwriting. If you're a Failure fan, you should definitely check this out. It is one of, I think, one of Ken Andrews' best albums that he's put out across all of his solo works and Failure stuff. I love Year of the Rabbit, and just another example of being patient and waiting for something to finally make it to vinyl so I could add it to my collection and drop the needle on it. So there you go, 20 of the coolest albums I've added to my collection. What's the coolest album you've added to your collection this year? That's what I want to know. If you've made it this far, leave me a comment. Let me know an album or albums that you're excited that you've acquired in the last year. As always, I appreciate you watching Talking About Records. My name is G.I. Sanders, and we will see you again next time.